The division championships are here. XFL DFS. We've got the Renegades playing the Roughnecks on Saturday evening, and we've got Seattle going into DC. This should be interesting. This is only a 2-game slate. It's kind of been a shit show lately with XFL. Let's talk a little bit more about it. Let's do it. What is up, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, what's going on with you, man? How are you? Are you excited that XFL is sort of winding down a little bit, or are you a little sad? What are your thoughts?
I think I'm kind of in between, man. I am kind of excited for it to wrap up just because it's been so goddamn unpredictable at times. But I've also enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would coming into the season, right?
Yeah.
I was kind of expecting it to get canceled like halfway through, to be completely honest. But Draftkings did a good job making these contests at least somewhat desirable.
Yeah.
And I had a little bit more fun than I expected. Maybe we'll start playing some USFL. I don't know what that means for content, but maybe we'll start trying to play it.
Yeah, well, the good thing with XFL is I think each year that this is built up, you're just going to get so many more fans each year. And once it's established that, hey, this isn't going away anytime soon, I think people are going to buy more into it. It's kind of hard, when you have a new league like this and that's failed multiple times, for people to actually care enough to actually pay attention, because they feel like the rug is going to get pulled out from underneath them, and it's like, what was the point? So it's going to be it's nice. We're at the last basically 2 slates of the season for XFL. Maybe we'll mess around with a little USFL. I don't quite know yet. I don't know if I have the energy or the patience to go through this again for another 6-7 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever's left. But we'll figure that out. Comment down below if you want us to do some USFL content, and maybe we will. Let's look at briefly last week the winners there. So this was the big contest. Jet lagged, had AJ McCarron, Kareem Walker, Josh Gordon, Hakeem Butler, Juwan Green, John Hilliman, and Battlehawks. Look, if you didn't have McCarron and if you didn't have Butler together, you're screwed. I mean, bottom line, it didn't really matter. If you had those two guys together, you're going to be feeling pretty good. I mean, look, Hakeem Butler was only 23% owned. Guess why? Because there's a guy named Aitman that everybody and their mother was playing. I think he was 70+% owned in this contest, and then like 85% owned in the 180 contest. And he shit the bed, obviously. But what jumps out to you here, man? I interestingly enough, Kareem Walker's there. This lineup actually is interesting because the $180 winner for 5K actually had a higher score, which is kind of interesting. So what are your thoughts on this lineup here?
So there's one thing I do want to point out. We talked about it a little bit on the show last week, but just given how chalky Aitman was going to come in, and just that we know Darius Shepard is AJ's guy, we were talking about maybe you just go, 2-1 or whatever from this game. You take AJ and Hakeem Butler, and then you fade Aitman, and it ended up working. So it was cool that happened. But the other part is props to the people in the Discord. We got the news about the running back situation pretty close to lock there. And we were chopping it up a little bit there about who's going to get the run. So generally in those cases, like I probably wouldn't have ended up playing Walker if this was the NFL, but I ended up having a little bit of exposure to him just because it's the XFL, right? He was min priced and we were kind of looking for that value. So yeah, hop in the Discord, guys. We're going to chop that shit up as close as we can before lock and try and share that information as quickly as possible. It was probably hard to get to this, and use 6%.
Yeah, exactly. Let's look at this other build here. This one was about 4 points higher. This is 5K. If he were to enter this into the big contest, he'd be 5K richer. But McCarron, Walker, Butler, Shepard, Landon Akers, Andrew Jamel, and Roughnecks defense. Look, last week was all over the place. It really was. It was hard to predict that. I got tore up. I didn't play a ton of lineups. I played 3 in the $180, and I didn't even come close to cashing, just simply because I had too much Aitman. That really screwed everything up. But look, this is pretty interesting. Just like you said, McCarron, Butler, Shepard, and Walker. Like, you had to stack the hell out of that game, because the game, that game that Sunday night game with Seattle, the last game, we thought that was going to be a little bit more higher scoring, and it just wasn't. I mean, look at this. There's no one from that game in this lineup, right? Am I right about that? Yeah. There's no one from that game in this lineup. It was all from that St. Louis-Orlando game. So anyways, I think we really have to, Ellie, you and I were talking before we started recording. This is the XFL, man. The like most guaranteed guy in the world that you think is going to go off, you can't rely on it. You just can't. So you just gotta. I think the way I'm gonna do it this week is play as many 20 maxes as I can, and just spread myself out. And because this is gonna be tough, man. It's a 2-game slate. This is like some of these Sunday slates that we're dealing with coming up. So this is gonna be a little bit different strategy. You're gonna have to reach and get some of these dudes that you're probably not comfortable playing, like TJ Hammonds and some of these other random dudes that we're just not used to playing on these main slates, usually only on showdowns. So let's look at the first look here for this week. Only 2 games. Arlington Renegades going into Houston. Actually, I'm sorry. Let's do the injuries first. This makes things a lot easier if we do the injuries first. Not a whole lot to talk about injury-wise. I wish there was more to talk about because maybe it would make things a little bit more interesting and we get some value that would pop up. But Victor Bolden, he's out again. Like you said, Ellie, in the Discord, I mean, this guy just pieced out. He's just like, let's hang out for a couple minutes and let me get the hell out of here because I'm done with this. Shoulder and groin injury. Letty Brown, knee injury. Looks like he's probable. He was a DNP earlier in the week. Now he's limited Thursday. Puka Williams, man, last week with DC, I thought for sure there was absolutely zero reason why they would play their starters. And they did. They played him the entire game. They had Teamu in the fourth quarter running around getting hit, which makes absolutely no sense to me. I think the priorities of these, you would think the priorities of these teams would be to win first, save your starters so that you can win the championship. Maybe that's not their priorities. Maybe it's getting these guys playing time. I don't know. It was so confusing to me to see those guys out there the entire game. But the reason I bring that up is because Puka Williams to me was a really good play at 3,900. He was a great play. They just released Raquel Armstead. And look, he almost scored a touchdown on a kickoff there, which would have been nice. But anyways, my point here is we're going to see some interesting stuff this week, most likely from these teams. Players that you're not used to seeing on the field might be out there a little bit more. Blake Jackson is showing up on the injury report with a shoulder injury. He's probable, though. He was limited this week. Damian Willis might miss with that shoulder injury. He's questionable. And Michael Bandy is questionable again with a hip injury. Don't know if we're going to see him or not. What jumps out to you here, man? Seems like to me, Letty Brown, if he's out, maybe we find some value there. Maybe we go heavier on Devion Smith. Like, what are you thinking here? What jumps out to you the most?
Well, I think the one piece that I want to bring up because it matters right now, since we don't have any clear value, is Michael Bandy is still listed as out on Draftkings, and we're not 100% sure if he plays. He's 3,300. He might be a guy that I'm interested in just because, again, we're lacking value. But outside of that, again, Damian Willis, if for whatever reason he doesn't play, I think it opens a little bit value in Seattle. Outside of that, none of this is all that shocking, man. Victor Bolden showed up, had like 2 plays, and was like, fuck this, man. I'm on DMP.
All right, let's move on to our bird's eye view of the slate. Arlington playing the Renegades again. This will be the third matchup of the year. Renegades won twice. They played the first week and they played the last week. You can't really look at film on any of those games and actually think that they matter in this matchup. The first one they didn't have Luis Perez. And the last one, there was nothing really to play for in that game. They kind of locked things up, and why would you put anything on tape against a team you're playing the next week? So this is the wild card game, in my opinion. I think that at this point in the season, it's pretty crazy to say, but Arlington with Luis Perez, I think their offense looks better than the Houston Roughnecks, simply because Brandon Silvers has not looked good because he's been hurt. So that's the key here. Is Brandon Silvers with a few weeks off here, is he going to be okay like in this game? Can he make those deep passes to Burnett? He's been incredibly inaccurate. I think the way to go here, dude, is if you're playing, in the 180, or if you're playing in any of these single entries, maybe just grab like a running back in defense from this matchup, or maybe a one-off. But if you want to get crazy with some GPP builds in the big contest, Luis Perez and Sal Canella or Devion Smith or whomever, I think you can stack the Renegades in this particular matchup. I just don't know that I'm super comfortable going heavy on Houston. They've hurt me too often, man. I'm kind of scared of them. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think I'm with you here, man. I like getting exposure to Arlington. I think even the Vegas odds, I think everything's a little bit mispriced, misadjusted, just incorrect based on their previous quarterback situation. I think Luis Perez is better than what they had prior, and I think they're going to be able to put up some points. So, just given the way that they're priced on DraftKings, I think you have to be willing to take a couple stabs here. I'm with you. I'm not sold on Houston. They just haven't looked the same since the Brandon Silvers injury. And I think you're okay to maybe get a run back if you want to do a Luz Perez, Alcanella, and Burnett or something along those lines. I think that's okay. Just don't get necessarily too crazy with it. But even then, if you believe in Houston, I just think the amount of leverage you're going to get off that second game. Everyone is obviously playing the second game. The amount of leverage you're going to get just by playing two lineups of Brandon Silvers,
Yeah.
On a 2-game slate, I'm not going to fault you for doing that. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
But I love Arlington in this one, man. I'm probably going to have a decent amount of Luis Perez.
Yeah, I think so too. And look, like, if you're the XFL and just the fans in general, you do not want to see Arlington win this game. I mean, you just really do not. Like, having Arlington at 4-6 make it to the championship. I really think that this year, they shouldn't have relied on the divisions as much, just simply because of all the question marks with these teams. They should have just made it the top 4 teams, and number 1 seed plays number 4, number 2 plays number 3, and that's how it should have been. But hey, we're here. It is what it is. Let's just hope Houston wins this game, because Houston against against either Seattle or DC is a good matchup. But you put Arlington in the championship game. That feels like a sour end to a season, in my opinion. Anything else to talk about here with this first game?
No, I'm good, man.
All right, so Seattle going into DC. Apparently, there's some rain in the forecast in DC. We all know how that goes. We got to wait until I think this game starts at 3 p.m. on Sunday. So let's keep an eye on that Sunday morning. Let's see how the rain can affect this game. I don't think it's going to be terrible unless it's some massive downpour. I think it doesn't really change the game plan much, but just something to keep an eye on. So look. The Defenders are -3 favorites here. This is a 48.5 total. And the Defenders are -170 on the money line. The Defenders have beaten Seattle twice this year. But they were pretty close competitive games. It could have went either way. They beat them week 1, then they beat them a little bit later in the year. I personally think that Seattle, I want to see Seattle win this game. I'd love to see them in the championship. I think it's a slightly more entertaining game to see Seattle. What are your thoughts here, man? Like, it's hard to beat. I know we always talk about it in the NFL. Like, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in one season. This is a little different because it's the XFL. The competition isn't necessarily there. But I think Seattle can win this game, dude. What do you think?
Yeah, man, I like Seattle in this game. I think that they're going to be able to keep it competitive. The one thing that does bother me a little bit is just Ben DiNucci and his, proneness to turnovers. I think that gives DC the slight edge. If they don't turn it over, I think Seattle wins this game. But if Ben DiNucci throws any picks, it's a DC victory for me. But just overall, just from a DFS perspective, like, again, I don't want to spend too much time here because we know this is going to be the chalkiest game of them all. Jordan Ta'amu is kind of priced in between all the quarterbacks, so right now, just like by hand building, he's getting a lot of love for me, right? So that's another reason why I'm pulling a little bit more for Arlington, is because that pivot down is going to give us a little bit more flexibility. But you're going to have to take pieces of this game. You're going to have to get the touchdowns right. I think you really kind of want to pay up here, maybe get the studs. I think we're going to be focusing on guys like Pearson, Lucky Jackson. We know that they're going to get most of the volume in this game. And then you take pieces from the Arlington-Houston game.
The hard part about this is if you build with DiNucci and like Blake Jackson, especially Pearson, but Blake Jackson or Juwan Green, and then you run it back with Abram Smith and you try to get Lucky Jackson involved, or you get Blair or Hammond or any of these guys in here, you're kind of screwed with the rest of your spots. Like, having Ben DiNucci, you might need him because he's the kind of guy that can come out and score you 30 fantasy points, but by paying up all that salary and having to punt potentially in multiple positions and just try to get it right. It's just hard with the Sea Dragons to get it right with these pass catchers. One week it's Gordon, the other week it's Pearson, the other week it's Juwan Green, and also to add to that, we saw Phil Lindsay last week like barely see the field. Like he had a carry like on the first drive, and then he was MIA. I don't even know if he played the rest of that half. And then you had like the freaking tight end getting handoffs, and you had TJ Hammonds getting most of the work. Now, they've brought back Brendan Knox from he was there earlier in the year. He got hurt. They brought him back. He was inactive last week. Is he active this week? If he is, well, he's not even on the slate for DraftKings. Maybe we gotta talk to them and try to get him on there. But there's just so many different pieces in this game. Every player could score a touchdown. Every skill position player, and even look at all these tight ends for DC. Any one of these guys can break the slate. It's just, to me, I feel like for a situation like this on a weekend like this, try to get as many lineups as you can in some of these 20 maxes, and spread yourselves out and get as much. Cap your guys at a reasonable amount. And try to get as many different options as you can, because I just don't know where it goes. This game is going to be really hard to guess. All right, let's get into our breakdown. Break it down. All right, so we got our boy Ben DiNucci here. He's 11.2K. Jordan Teamu, 10K. Brandon Silver's 8,800. And you got Luis Perez is actually more expensive than Brandon Silver's, which is interesting at 9K. So what do we do here, man? Like, clearly, Ben DiNucci and Teamu together, I feel like, is like 70% of the ownership or around that. How much can we trust this lower total game? And is it worth getting an $8,800 Brandon Silvers in order to pay up, to get some of the skill position guys from the Seattle DC game? Is it even worth it? Does it work out? I mean, you'd have to expect Brandon Silvers to get you 25 or 20 plus fantasy points. You have to expect that for you to be able to play him, right?
Yeah, man. I think it's possible. I mean, it really depends on what version of Houston that we think we're getting here. And the longer that I dwell on it, the more that I'm going to end up bumping my exposure to him. Right now, I think 5 to 10% is probably fine. Again, you're going to get massive leverage on these other games because they're going to be so chalky. But dude, $200, Luis Perez. Again, I just think he's going to come in a little lower owned. I don't think anyone's really going to play him, and we've seen what he can do, man. I think he's a fine quarterback. It just, the shitty situation in Vegas is what ended up to him being over here.
Yeah.
So I like Luis Perez at 9K. He's just going to give you a lot of flexibility off these other guys. But single entry cash builds, you need to decide between Ben and Jordan. I think it's going to be Jordan, to be honest, just because of the flexibility it gives you for salary. And even for GPP, it's like, you just got to be careful with your exposure, especially if a guy like Ben DiNucci comes in 35% owned. Like his salary is so limiting that you're limiting the amount of opportunities you have to solo a contest.
Yeah, just
because you're restricted so much in what build type you can get, unless you're willing to just take some fucking crazy ass punts.
Yeah,
so that that's kind of where you're at. You have to make that decision there. Tamu, you can get a little bit more exposure to, but I think Perez is the guy, man.
And with these price pools being so small now, I mean, 10K is 10K. That's good. That's good. First place, but I'm talking like top 5. If you get like third or fourth place and you chop it with like 4 or 5 other people, man, you might not even break even. So you're right. Ben DiNucci is the right way to go. Play him in the 180. Play him in any single entries. But for me, in these bigger contests, I would rather save some money and go down to one of these other quarterbacks. And then, sprinkle in some of these, low price wide receivers for Seattle. To me, if you're going to play Ben DiNucci, you kind of just have to go down to Juwan Green or VC or Hammonds. Like, you really can't get away with DiNucci and Pearson unless you're going to punt multiple times. The pricing is too tight this week, and it's, we don't have injury news right now. There's no injuries that are coming out. We might not be able to do anything about it. All right, let's go to running backs. So Abram Smith is 9,800. Devion Smith, 7,700. Look at Max Borghi, 7,600. That's probably the lowest he's been all season. Kind of, that's not bad. 7,600. You probably can expect Max Borghi to get a couple receptions and at least an opportunity at 1 to 2 touchdowns in the red zone. We've seen it many times. When this team gets in the red zone, they usually end up handing the ball off to him a couple more times than usual. So what do we do here, man? These are the top options. Both Smiths and Borgi. How can you not play Abram Smith though? Like, there's a path that he has an average game, but there's also a path that this guy has the highest ceiling on the slate almost.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I think you're just stuck with limitations from roster construction standpoint. Like Ben DiNucci and Abram Smith is going to be probably a fairly rare stack just because of how much it's going to cost to do that appropriately, right? Or if you're doing that, you're Ben DiNucci, Abram Smith, and then VC and I don't know, some other fucking punt, right? So you're limited in your roster construction when doing that. So again, not to keep harping on the same thing, but Luis Perez opens up the ability to get to Abram Smith because his stacking components are so much cheaper. So you have the ability to do that. But man, this mid range right here, Devion Smith, Max Borgi, and even Philip Lindsay, like I like it, man. I think even though Lindsay kind of got shafted in the last game, maybe they were saving him for this. Like, we know he had injuries in the NFL. Maybe they just wanted to see if they can have him fucking crush for 2 games. Yeah, that's it. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then Borgi, we know, is going to get involved in the pass game. He might be the only guy from Houston outside of maybe Bandy that I'm comfortable playing. So 7,600, he's not terrible. But getting deeper into this pool, it's a little bit scary. I think the only dude I might be willing to play would be maybe Bryson Aline, maybe TJ Hammonds. I don't know, man. It's still scary.
Yeah, man. Who knows? I mean, if Knox is active, TJ Hammonds is on the depth chart is listed behind Ja'Cour Pearson as a wide receiver option. So if Knox is active, I don't know if that hurts or helps TJ Hammonds. Maybe he's playing more in the slot. I don't know. But look, Letty Brown at 4,700 is interesting. But look, if you're Arlington, just feed Devion Smith. That guy's a beast. Just give him the ball as much as you possibly can and stop getting cute with rotating Letty Brown in. Because Devion Smith can catch the ball out of the backfield as well. Jeremy Cox at 3K, I mean, no. I didn't even know that guy existed until last week. And Brian Harrion at 3K. If Letty Brown is out, well, hey, you got a 3K guy there that you might want to think about playing. Puka Williams, I'm still going to play him again. I'm still going to lose all my money again, just because I can't help it. He's $3,300, and this week, if they choose to actually play him, look, at minimum, maybe we get a kickoff return from him. That was so pissed, though, because dude had like an incredible kickoff return, got it down to what's like the 5-yard line. He gets 0 points for that. There's got to be some way, even if it's just like a very, very small amount of points for some of these kickoff and punt return guys. Like, you got to have something for a play like that. They need to change the scoring up, and even if it was like 2 fantasy points for that, like just something. Anything else to talk about here? You want to move on?
No, I think we're good.
All right, so Ja'Cour Pearson once again is the highest priced wide receiver. He's been that way pretty much the entire year. Josh Gordon 9,600. Lucky Jackson is now 9,200. Thanks, DraftKings. That really screws things up. Deontay Burnett at 8,900. So look, Deontay Burnett has an incredibly high ceiling, but he also has a goose egg floor. So to me, Burnett is one of the most interesting guys at 8,900 because he's priced lower than Pearson, Gordon, and Jackson. And, there's a good opportunity for him to outscore all these guys. So 8,900 is interesting. And then you got Blake Jackson at 8,300. So you're going to have to make decisions. If you want to play Ja'Cour Pearson and DiNucci, well, you're going to have to get really creative and you're going to have to hope for some news. But Ja'Cour Pearson at 10.6, you're not going to be able to play like Ja'Cour and Abram Smith together probably, right? Like, so what do we do? Who are you interested in here? And Josh Gordon, to me, is still on the no-fly list. He needs to be priced down. Just because he had a good week last week doesn't really mean shit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I hope the field kind of chases a little bit with Josh Gordon because I'm gonna have a pretty decent amount of exposure to these guys. I like Ja'Cour Pearson. 10.6. I don't think he's gonna get all that much ownership because I think people again are gonna be paying up for Ben DiNucci. They're gonna be paying for Tamu, and they're gonna be paying for Abram Smith. So it's gonna impact your ability to pay up for those wide receivers. I like Ja'Cour Pearson, man. I'm gonna have a decent amount of exposure to him. Lucky Jackson, Blake Jackson. I think those guys can probably be a part of your core. If you don't want to pay up for Ja'Cour Pearson, Blake Jackson at 8,300 again is just, I think that's a great price for him.
Yeah, yeah.
I and then Deontay Burnett, I think he's a good GPP target, 8,900. I like I said, I'm gonna have a little bit of exposure to the Brendan Silver stacks, and just because I'm playing Luis Perez, I'm not gonna go 100% of those naked, right? Or not run without a run back. I am gonna have some Deontay Burnett run backs or whatever. So, open up that exposure there. Again, this game is gonna be low owned, just because people are gonna be taking pieces of it and trying to stack up as much of the second one as they can.
Yeah.
So this price range right here, just it's kind of nice. But and a couple other guys I am a little bit interested in: Christian Blair and Juwan Green. I don't think I'm going to be going down to Travell Harris and Cedric Byrd. If you're stuck in that 63 to 6,800, I think you try and just pay up a little bit and go up to Blair or Green, or if you're comfortable with it, drop down to Hammond. I think those three in that range is probably about where I'll go.
Because here's the hard part, man, is it feels like every other week, like we're getting Lucky Jackson incredible games, and we're getting Chris Blair huge target games. We're getting Josh Hammond. All three of these guys can have like an absolute ceiling type performance. Not all three of them at the same time, but I feel like one of these dudes is most likely going to go off in a game like this. And Josh Hammond at 6,100 is really interesting. I mean, that's he's just barely priced below Cedric Byrd. Now, of course, this is probably the week that Cedric Byrd absolutely goes off, and it's the one week that I would refuse to play him. But if I had to choose between Cedric Byrd and Josh Hammond, I'm choosing Josh Hammond almost every time. Look, Jordan VC's 5,300. See, one thing we do need to talk about here is these Arlington pass catchers. I think because of their price, this could be the way to go, is getting one of these pass catchers in your lineup. And even a guy like why am I blanking? Sal Cannella, sorry. Even a guy like Sal Cannella is what, like 6,600? He's not expensive. So every one of these dudes, you got Winningham, we've seen him catch touchdowns. Arcanado is more one of these dudes that can get you 5, 6, 7 receptions. Tyler Vaughn's is kind of a big play guy. Van Der Esch, I don't know that I'm getting down to that, but like all these Arlington pass catchers, I think can be the key to this slate. If you could find the one dude that has a good game, I think that allows you, really opens things up, because the number one pass catcher on this team is $4,700, wide receiver wise, and then 66 for Sal Cannella. Like you could capture a lot of these points by just grabbing maybe one or two of these dudes. So thoughts on Arlington's pass catchers?
I love it, man. I mean, we're just really repeating kind of what we were talking about earlier in the show, right? I mean, with Luis Perez, you can still get a guy like Devion Smith if you want him, or even just go Luis and Brandon Arcanado, right? You've spent maybe 14,000. You can pretty much pay up where you want. You want Ja'Cour Pearson and Abram Smith, you got it, right? You're getting a wide receiver one, or even a tight end one, San Canelo, who's wide receiver 2 in the NFL, or the XFL at this goddamn. But like 6,600, it's just a really cheap stack, man. You can pay up for what you want everywhere else. I don't know if you need to go to Van Der Esch, but even Lawan Winningham, like you can play him in $3,500. He could get an end zone target.
So Bandy, questionable again. If he plays, I'm interested in him at 3,200. But I don't, I'm not touching Putman at 3K. If Bandy plays, I am interested in getting some of him. You got Justin Smith at 4,400, who's showed some upside, but just has been basically disappointing for most of the season. Besides that, I mean, you're going to have to find one of these lower end dudes under 5K. I feel like you're going to have to, because one of these dudes is going to score. And if you could find the dude that goes off, man, you're going to be set up pretty well. Tight ends. Sal Cannella 6,600, and then you got all the DC dudes. Alex Ellis is 3K, B. Riley Moore 2,800, and Ethan Wolf is 2,500. Hell, man, if you're looking for a last piece to fit in, Ethan Wolf at 2,500 is not bad. All three of these dudes are decent options as punts. They just don't have a huge ceiling. Like you could expect one of these dudes to catch a touchdown, but are they going to get you more than 10 fantasy points? I don't know. That might be enough though. At 2,500 a 10 fantasy point output and saving all that money, that might be enough. So, what are your thoughts on these tight ends besides Sal Cannella? We all know at this point he had a goose egg a few weeks ago with Luis Perez. Now he's starting to get in a rhythm with him, and he's getting more volume. Cannella 6,600, incredible. But who else are we interested in here?
So, this is a good time to plug Discord. Hop in the Discord because this is where roster construction really matters, right? As news opens up, as we get closer to lock, we'll talk about how we'll change our builds. But right now, because we don't necessarily have any obvious news or obvious value, you're kind of stuck in a couple builds, right? You go, studs like Ben DiNucci, and then you punt with some of those cheap ass wide receivers we were just looking at, or you come over here to tight end. You play a guy like Ethan Wolf. You play a guy like Alice Ellis. So you can pay up, and if you get a zero, you get a zero. But again, like for right now, I think that's more of just a placeholder strategy. Like you can have one of these guys in there, but that's you really only leaving that if nothing else opens up. Now, if you really think B. Riley Moore McKinney is going to be Tony Gonzalez this weekend, then fucking play him, right? But other than that, right, like you probably just want to use them as placeholders.
Yeah, and I think that it's more valuable to stack one of these tight ends with Te'amu to get that double stack points there, as opposed to using one of these guys as a one-off, just simply because their ceiling isn't really there. So just keep that in mind. So defense, Defenders 4,800, Roughnecks 44, Renegades 4, and Sea Dragons 3,900. I mean, I think the obvious way to go, and I think a lot of people are going to go this way, is pick a defense from this low total Houston-Arlington game. I think that's the smart way to do it. Look, DC going up against Seattle, you could see them scoring a touchdown. I don't see them like limiting Seattle to like under 20 points or anything like that. But with Ben DiNucci, with possible rain, maybe you see a fumble, maybe you see an interception, maybe, we saw it last week. We almost saw Lucky Jackson score a kickoff touchdown. So all that really matters for the DC defense. And if, you're going to have to pick the defense right here. But look, with the Renegades at 4K, I think that's the safest to me, simply because of how Houston's offense has been performing lately. And that total in that game, either one of these Roughnecks or Renegades is probably the safest route. But if you're playing GPPs, Defenders, or the Sea Dragons even, not a bad option. Who's your favorite defense here?
It's Arlington for right now. I don't have much faith in Houston, but I think targeting this game just because the low total isn't necessarily a horrible idea. But if you're running a loose Perez stack, then you should probably look at either stacking with Arlington's defense, or potentially looking and praying for rain on Sunday and hoping that the defenders shut down the Sea Dragons or something along those lines. Again, those last two that last game, they're not going to be owned on the defense side. Yeah. So if you can go get leverage by saving $1,000 with the Sea Dragons defense and they get a pick six, they could be optimal. That's fine.
We'll talk about it a little bit more here when we start building lineups, but thinking about telling a story in your head and how these two games can go, I think it's a little bit easier than a 4-game slate to do that. Like you can tell the story of, well, what if the Defenders and the Sea Dragons hit the under because it's pouring rain? Well, what happens there? Well, what do I need to do? Well, maybe grab a one-off, maybe grab the run game from that, and then stack up that first game. We've seen it so many times. How many times have we seen such an obvious smash spot for these teams, and it's just a very underwhelming performance, and nothing really extraordinary happens? I'm not telling you not to stack this Sunday game, but think about it. If you're doing 20+ lineups, have a couple game scripts in there where Arlington beats Houston in a shootout and they hit the under in the second game. Like, think of it that way. Less about the players maybe, and more about what happens if these games do certain things. That's just kind of my thought on it. Kind of a showdown approach when it comes to that. What are your stacks? What's your favorite stack and your favorite value? Now, you could a tournament stack, or a cash type stack. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for cash, I think my like if I will call them building blocks in this particular case, but for cash, I think I'm looking at Jordan Tamu and Abram Smith as really kind of the core that'll be building around. But for GPP, kind of just I'm sure everybody's aware of the dead horse that I've been beating the shit out of by now. But Luis Perez, Sal Canella, that's going to be where I'm starting. Luis Perez, Devion Smith, Sal Canella, even, and then just going from there. I think you can do whatever you want with that.
For tournaments, for me, I feel like I'm going to embrace a little bit more of this first game when it comes to stacking. Like grab Silvers and Deontay Burnett. You know what I mean? Like Burnett would be the guy that I'm going to really stack with Silvers, because if Silvers is going to have a good game, you're probably going to need to see some large passing numbers out of him. And who benefits most from a 60, 70-yard touchdown?
Right.
It's going to be Burnett. The dink and dunks to Cedric Bird or these other dudes, they're not really going to allow for Silvers to be the optimal quarterback on this slate. So I rather swing for the fences in situations like that. And they're not too expensive. You combine Burnett and Silvers, and I feel like there's a really good opportunity to have a huge ceiling with a lower price. And if you went back like 4 or 5 weeks from now and you heard us talking about how bad, and the ownership and how bad these guys are playing, you'd think we're crazy. But that's where we're at. Silvers and Burnett and Houston they don't look as good as they should have been. Value. Who's your favorite value dude?
I guess Michael Bandy if he ends up playing. If not, probably tight end. Ethan Wolf, B. Riley Moore, McKinney.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Play him at your own risk, but 3,300 Puka Williams. I'm interested in sprinkling him in again, not as much as I did last week. But it's tough, dude. Right now, like get back to us in the Discord on this, because we're gonna obviously have people that are gonna be out, surprise dudes that are out. So keep in mind that things will change as we get closer. All right, let's build some lineups here. Pull this up. So where do we want to go for the first build? Do you want to build like a cashy type build together? I was having a really hard time the past few days and before the show, like really figuring this out. Do you have a firm idea on like if you're building for the $180 contest where you'd go? Probably Ben DiNucci at quarterback. I mean, that's probably the way to go, right?
Yeah, let's start with that. Let's just see how difficult it is to build with him. Let's go. You want to do Ben DiNucci? Let's throw in Abram Smith, and then honestly, let's throw in Blake Jackson. I think.
Okay.
Not gonna be able to get up to Pearson.
Let's go Juwan Green, because you could save a decent amount there.
That's fine.
Let's go Juwan Green, because I think his ownership will be relatively up there. All these guys here are going to be relatively high owned. So where do we go from here?
Let's throw in the Arlington defense. Now let's just get that out of the way.
Yep. Now when we're building here, I'll adjust, but remember, try to keep the flex positions open for that Sunday game, just in case anything weird happens. For the running back position, if you're going to play anybody from that first game, make sure you put them at the running back position and not the flex. Do we got to get a guy like Devion Smith in here, or do we want to go value?
I think we need to try and get a value in first.
Yeah. Where are we going value-wise? You want to go wide receiver? We got to get a DC guy, a pass catcher at minimum. I mean, is this remember, we're building for this other contest, so we don't need to get too crazy, but is this a Chris Blair situation? Is this a Hammond situation?
I think it's a Hammond just because of the pricing.
Yeah. So we've got decent amount left. We got 6K a pop. So we could find our value type dude right now and see what we got left over. I mean, are you interested in Letty Brown? Are you interested in like TJ Hammonds? Like, I don't know that I would play them for this particular lineup, but where do we go? Like, do you want to just go down? You want to just go down to one of these dudes from Arlington? Like, I don't know, man. What do you think?
Yeah, if I'm being honest with you, man, like, I don't hate like just throwing in Tyler Vaughns or Brandon Arconato. Like, they're going to be a wide receiver 1 or 2 pretty much, and they're priced like a wide receiver 4.
Let's try. Yes, I totally agree with you. Let's try. Let's see if we can get to Sal Canella, because I feel pretty comfortable playing
Okay.
Canella.
Yeah, we can.
In this lineup at 5,200. Where does that get us? That gets us in the Letty Brown. That gets us in the Houston Arlington range, like Arcanado. I'm not playing Arcanado and Canella together in this lineup. TJ Hammond's Bryson Aline. I don't know, man. This is we're kind of in rocking a hard place here. Should we adjust? Should we go somewhere else here? Should we go down? Should we go down from Canella? Like Letty Brown. I mean, it's not bad. If we're not playing Devion Smith, maybe we could go Letty Brown here.
Yeah, Letty Brown's fine. I mean, and then you got the handcuff there too with Arlington Renegade's defense, Sal Canella. I mean, I like Arlington, man. So like, I don't think this is a terrible stack. But the one thing is like, I do want to point out, right? Like, we struggled building this, so that means like if other people who are building, they may end up on something similar to this.
Yeah, because
it's a balanced build type, right? So
yeah,
well, that's what happens when you play Ben DiNucci quarterback, though.
Yeah, let's do a single entry safer build with Teamu and see what that gets us, because these are the only 2 quarterbacks that I'm going to be playing in this 180. So Teamu, sure. Abram Smith again. Like, how do you want to handle this? Do you care about Abram Smith in the lineup like this?
I think honestly, like I think you can go Ta'amu and Abram Smith, and then just not worry about stacking wide receivers.
Yeah. Yeah, like absorb unless one of these dudes like Lucky Jackson has like 2 touchdowns. Like, you're hoping that Teamu, you absorb all the points and he spreads it out, and you get all those points to him. Now we're gonna have to get, like, to me, you got to get at least 2 pass catchers from Seattle in a lineup like this. Now, with paying down for Teamu, can we get Pearson? Let's try it. Do you want to?
I'm down.
Now, we can go, obviously we're waiting on some injury news. Where is he? From Damian Willis. If Damian Willis is out, like, are we okay with VC? I mean, I know that's not direct. They're not playing the exact same position, but what do we do? Like, are you interested in going like super low priced? Do you want to just go with Juwan Green at 7,100?
This might sound crazy, but I don't mind playing Damian Willis. Like, if he plays at 3,300, like I don't mind playing him. But Juwan Green's fine too.
Yeah, for a cashy type build, I think Juwan Green's probably the way to go. And look, this is not terrible. We kind of got ourselves in a little bit of a rough spot here. You want to go Renegades again? Defense. Yeah. So that leaves us with 4,200 a pop. We're gonna have to punt somewhere. You want to punt at wide receiver? Do you want to grab like Letty Brown, or do you want to grab?
Throw in one of Tommy's tight ends. Like, this is a fun time to punt there.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go with Ellis. Or no, I'm sorry. Let's go with Ethan Wolf at 2,500. Let's see if that gets us anywhere at 6K here. I can rearrange this a little bit if we need to. Let me put Abram Smith in the running back spot just to get a little bit extra out of this. So 6K, Jordan Vesey, Letty Brown. This is nice. So this last spot is a little bit better to build with Teamu. Now, if you wanted to do something a little different, instead of Ethan Wolf, you could go down to Puka. And 5,200 left. That gets you Letty Brown, Vaughns, Arcanado.
What happens if you go from Pearson to Blake Jackson?
Yeah, we might have to do something like that. Where are you at, Blake? So 7,500. Travell Harris, not quite Borgie. You could get Canella.
Yeah.
So you got 5 dudes from this second game, and then Canella and Renegades from the first. I don't know, man. We're gonna have to wait till injury news comes out in that first game and be ready to move for this like single entry type build. Let's build tournament lineups. This is gonna be a lot easier. Yeah. So where do you want to go with tournaments? Obviously, Ben DiNucci and Teamu are going to be very popular. You're going to want to get some exposure to them, but we've been talking a lot about Perez and Silvers and getting different. So let's start with Perez. And this roster construction type I kind of like this weekend. Picking a quarterback from this first game, pair him with a pass catcher, and then your ownership's gonna be so low and you're gonna save a lot of money. You can get all the studs from that second game, most likely. So let's go Perez and let's go Canella to start. You like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
All right. So now, look, I do like Devion Smith too. We haven't really built with him a lot, but let's try to just grab as many dudes as possible. Most from the second game. Most likely, we're probably going to want to go Renegades here. You know, I don't want to use the Sea Dragons defense at this point. Maybe. So here's our core for this. Let's start jamming in dudes from this other game. I think we're going to have to choose between Abram Smith and Ja'Cour Pearson, probably. What do you think?
Let's start with Ja'Cour Pearson.
All right, let's start there. Now, you know, you got the Blake Jacksons, you got the Lucky Jacksons, you got Blair. I mean, you got so many different options. I think you're going to have to just rotate dudes out. This is why doing 20-plus lineups is going to be key. Who do you want to go with here to start?
Let's do Lucky Jackson and then. Okay, yeah. See, now that makes sense. Now we're in a range where we have to decide what we're gonna do with running back.
Yeah. I mean, here's the problem.
What happens if we put in Borgie?
Let's see if we can do that. I don't think we can. 3K. I guess we can. It's one of these tight ends.
It's too scary.
I mean, it's one of these tight ends.
Yeah. E. Riley, Ethan Wolf.
Yeah. I mean, you could go like a guy with like McKnight if Willis is out. Ellis. Let's go Ellis for now. So how many dudes do we have from this game? We've only got 3, which is kind of interesting. Let's not do Borgie.
Can we? Yeah. Can we go down somewhere else off of Borgie?
Let's punt, man.
Let's see.
I mean, obviously Puka Williams at 3,300 is nice, but I'm not going to build too much with him. Let's go with TJ Hammonds. 4K.
That's fine.
You like that?
Mm-hmm.
We have to just, you know, if Brendan Knox is active this week, I think that hurts Hammonds maybe a little bit. But 6,600 for this last spot, Philip Lindsay. Hey, for a tournament build, I wouldn't hate that. Hammonds and Lindsay.
Josh Hammonds. Josh Hammond. Okay. Yeah, so we got from this Sunday game, we've got Hammonds, Pearson, Jackson, Lucky Jackson, and Josh Hammond. That's pretty nice. Let's try our boy Brendan Silvers and Burnett, and let's see what we can get here. Now, to me, I'm probably gonna do. In this case, I'm probably going Roughnecks defense, or do you want to try Seattle or the Defenders here? I mean, you can still do the Roughnecks defense, and you can run it back too if you want. I mean, they have a defensive touchdown last week.
Yeah. All right, let's do that. Now let's try to get from this other game. We're probably gonna have to choose again, Ja'Cour Pearson or Abram Smith. I feel like with no, like, Abram Smith doesn't have a true backup. He's gonna get a ton of volume.
Yeah.
Let's just go with and Ja'Cour Pearson, as good as he is, he's competing with so many other dudes that can catch the ball. Let's go Abram Smith here. Actually, let me put him. Oops, don't want to do that. Let me put him in the flex for now. All right, where are we going? Do we want a run back from Arlington, or do we want to just mainly focus on this last game?
Yeah, let's look at this last game because Arlington's so cheap. If we need to punt or a run back, I think we're fine. So you want?
I think we should go mid-range with.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think we should go mid-range with these pass catchers like Blake Jackson and Lucky Jackson, or Blake Jackson and Blair. You know, something like that. I don't know if we're going to be able to get there though. Let's go Juwan Green.
Yeah, I mean,
let's go Juwan Green.
That's what I was going to say.
He's in such a nice spot, dude.
Yeah.
At that price, Juwan Green, and then let's go with Hammond. And that leaves us with about 5K for the running back spot. Letty Brown, TJ Hammonds, any one of those dudes. So, do you want to build anything else, or how you feeling?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm feeling fine, right? Like, again, like just to kind of repeat what we've been saying on the show, until something obvious opens up, you're either just punting or you're looking to kind of balance builds, right? You're not stacking Pearson, Blake Jackson, and Lucky Jackson. You're probably just getting Lucky and Blake, and then some more mid-range guys somewhere else. So,
Yeah.
Hop in the Discord. We're gonna do our best to keep you guys up to date on that stuff, and we chop it up pretty close to lock there to make it easy on everyone.
Yeah, I feel like, to me, I'm gonna be more focused on playing Showdown this weekend, because I think there's a little bit of edge there still. And just by paying attention to news, you could find and building like after inactives are released, and just maybe one random backup dude is not playing, you can get a lot of leverage off that by playing the other guy, you know. So I think Showdown is interesting this weekend. For when it comes to main slate 2 games, I'm going to focus on getting as many lineups as I can possibly afford to enter. I think I'll probably end up with at least 60 to 80, depending on the contest. I think I've looked. I think they have a $3.20 max. They have a $1.20 max. They have a 25-cent, but it's like $500 prize pool. I'm not touching that. I want to my prize pool up, like the first place. I want it to be at least be able to double my money or cover my fees. So I'm not going to do that. What are you doing this weekend when it comes to building lineups? How are you approaching this? Are you gonna just throw in maybe one bullet, or are you gonna go and try to get a portfolio of lineups that can kind of spread yourself out?
I'll probably stick more to bullets or single entries this weekend. There's just a lot of sports going on, and to be honest with you, Suns play Saturday night, so I don't know how sober I'm going to be in through the whole day, and I don't want to be making bad decisions to chase money. So, you got to play responsibly, but I think single entries be the way to go. I'll probably end up doing 1 or 2 20 maxes, as much as I say I won't.
Yeah, I feel you, man. All right, guys, we appreciate it. Throw us a like on the way out. Join that Discord. We're going to I think we have a week off next week because of the XFL Championship takes a week off, like similar to the Super Bowl. I'm about 90% sure of that. And we're going to have Scott Stradamus back on that show. It's going to be a showdown show for the XFL Championship. And as soon as they start releasing DraftKings Best Ball for NFL, I think we're going to start going live for that. So keep an eye out for that if you're interested in that. And we will see you guys later. Take it easy.